There comes a moment, often late at night, when the world falls silent, but your mind refuses to rest. Your chest feels heavy, not from the weight of the day, but from the weight of your own thoughts. In that moment, you feel torn, pulled apart from the inside. Emotion shouts. It demands. It threatens. Fear says run. Pain says collapse. Desire says take whatever eases the ache. And most people obey. Instantly. Without question. But beneath that noise, there is another voice. It does not shout. It does not beg. It does not rush you. It simply waits. That voice says, stand still. Think. Choose. This is the moment where lives quietly change, or quietly collapse. Not because of what happens outside of you, but because of what you allow to rule inside of you. We are taught to fight the world, to conquer circumstances, to control outcomes. But almost no one teaches us how to fight the war within. The Stoics understood this long before us. They knew the greatest victories are not won on battlefields, but in the mind. Long before a man is defeated by life, he is defeated by his own thinking. A storm does not destroy you the moment it arrives. It destroys you when you let chaos take command inside. This is why Stoicism does not begin with comfort. It begins with discipline. It begins with the decision to no longer kneel before your emotions. Not to suppress them. Not to deny them. But to place them where they belong. As servants. Not kings. When emotions rise like fire, the trained mind becomes stone. Unmoved. Unshaken. Uncontrolled. This is where your journey begins. Not with changing the world, but by mastering the war within yourself. Emotions feel convincing. They arrive with urgency, with intensity, with a sense of certainty that says, this must be real. But intensity is not truth. Loudness is not wisdom. In the modern world, we are trained to trust what we feel above all else. If something hurts, we assume it is unjust. If something excites us, we assume it is right. If something frightens us, we assume it is dangerous. But the Stoics warned us long ago, feeling is not knowing. Emotions are fast. They react before the facts arrive. They rush ahead of reason and then demand obedience. And when you obey them without question, you surrender your power without even realizing it. Look at how easily emotions distort reality. One careless word becomes proof that you are disrespected. One moment of failure becomes evidence that you are incapable. One comparison becomes a verdict on your worth. Nothing actually changed in the world. Only the story in your mind did. This is why emotions cannot be trusted with leadership. They magnify shadows and call them monsters. They take passing discomfort and label it permanent defeat. They take temporary fear and dress it up as truth. The Stoics never taught us to erase emotion. They taught us to examine it. To ask, is this signal accurate, or is it noise? Because emotions were never meant to be maps. They are signals. Warnings. Indicators. But a signal cannot tell you where to go. Only disciplined thought can. When you allow emotion to sit on the throne, your life becomes unstable. Your decisions change with your mood. Your confidence rises and falls with circumstances. Your peace becomes dependent on what happens outside of you. And anything that depends on the outside will eventually collapse. This is the quiet tragedy most people never name. They do not lose their lives in one dramatic failure. They lose them slowly, decision by decision, reaction by reaction, all driven by unchecked feeling. Stoicism offers a different path. It teaches you to pause. To create distance between stimulus and response. To let the mind question what the heart demands. Not because the heart is evil, but because it is impulsive. An untrained emotion seeks relief. A trained mind seeks truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, always leads to freedom. This is the second truth. If you want control over your life, you must first take control over what you believe your emotions are telling you. Because the moment you stop mistaking feeling for fact, clarity begins. Everything in your life moves in the direction of your thinking. Not your intentions. Not your desires. Not even your emotions. Your thinking. Before a decision becomes an action, it is first a thought. Before a habit shapes your character, it begins as a repeated belief. And before a life collapses or stabilizes, it is decided in the mind. The Stoics understood this with brutal clarity. They did not waste time blaming circumstances. They did not wait for the world to become gentle. They trained themselves to become unshakable. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he had power over his mind, not over events. That was not comfort. That was responsibility. Because the moment you realize your mind is your domain, excuses disappear. Most people live as if their thoughts are facts. They never question them. They never challenge them. They simply obey. A thought appears, and they follow it as if it were law. I am not good enough. This will never work. They are judging me. I always fail. These are not truths. They are unexamined thoughts. And unexamined thoughts quietly become prisons. A trained mind does not silence thought. It interrogates it. It asks, is this true, or is this familiar? Is this wisdom, or is this fear repeating itself? Is this clarity, or is this habit speaking? Without this discipline, the mind becomes a crowded room where every voice is allowed to speak at once. Confusion takes over. Confidence erodes. And emotion fills the vacuum. But when the mind is trained, something changes. You slow down. You stop reacting. You choose. You begin to see that most suffering is not caused by events, but by the meaning you assign to them. The insult does not break you. Your interpretation does. The delay does not defeat you. Your impatience does. The loss does not destroy you. Your resistance to reality does. This is where real strength is forged. Not in avoiding pain. Not in controlling others. But in governing your inner world with precision. The Stoics compared the mind to a fortress. If the gates are left open, anything can enter. Fear. Anger. Envy. Despair. And once inside, they rearrange your life without permission. But a disciplined mind guards the gate. It does not let every thought enter and make itself at home. It chooses what stays. It chooses what leaves. This is not suppression. This is sovereignty. When you govern your thoughts, your emotions follow. When your emotions follow, your actions stabilize. And when your actions stabilize, your life gains direction. This is the third truth. Power does not begin when the world changes. It begins when your thinking does. When emotions take the lead, stability is the first casualty. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But quietly, gradually, almost unnoticed. At first, it looks harmless. A reaction here. An outburst there. A decision made in the heat of the moment. You tell yourself it was justified. That anyone would have done the same. But over time, a pattern forms. Your mood begins to dictate your direction. Your energy rises and falls without warning. Your confidence depends on how others treat you. And your peace becomes fragile, easily disturbed. This is the hidden cost of emotional leadership. Life becomes reactive instead of intentional. You are no longer steering. You are responding. One harsh word can undo your entire day. One setback can make you question your worth. One moment of discomfort can convince you to abandon long-term goals. Not because the obstacle was too great, but because your inner structure was unprepared. An untrained mind hands the steering wheel to emotion. and emotion does not know where it is going. It only knows how it feels. Anger seeks release. Fear seeks escape. Desire seeks relief. None of them seek truth. This is why emotional living is expensive. It costs you clarity. It costs you consistency. It costs you relationships, progress, and sometimes years you will never recover. Many talented people fail here. Not because they lack ability. Not because the world was unfair. But because their emotions were never disciplined. Their inner life was chaotic. And chaos eventually expresses itself outward. The Stoics observed this pattern centuries ago. They saw that freedom is not the absence of hardship. It is the presence of self-mastery. When you are ruled by emotion, you are easy to manipulate. Praise inflates you. Criticism crushes you. Approval energizes you. Disapproval paralyzes you. Your life becomes a negotiation with the outside world. And the outside world will never give you lasting peace. But there is another way. When reason leads and emotion follows, stability returns. You respond instead of react. You endure discomfort without panic. You hold your course even when feelings fluctuate. This does not make you cold. It makes you grounded. You still feel anger. But you are not dragged by it. You still feel fear. But you do not obey it. You still feel pain. But you do not surrender your direction to it. This is the fourth truth. A life led by emotion will always be unstable. A life governed by disciplined thought becomes unbreakable. Long before modern psychology gave names to anxiety, overthinking, or emotional burnout, the Stoics were already studying the same battle. They did not study it from theory. They studied it from life, from loss, from power, from exile, from suffering. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire under constant threat, betrayal, and war. Yet in the privacy of his journal, he reminded himself of one unshakable truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. That was not philosophy for comfort. It was instruction for survival. Seneca watched fortune rise and fall. He knew wealth, influence, exile, and death were never far apart. From that clarity, he warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Not because pain is imaginary, but because the mind often multiplies it long before it arrives. Epictetus began life as a slave. He had no control over his body, his position, or his fate. So he mastered the one domain no master could take from him. His judgments. His thoughts. His responses. From three very different lives, one truth remained consistent. Freedom does not come from controlling circumstances. It comes from governing the inner world. This is why Stoicism has never belonged to one era. It does not depend on technology, culture, or comfort. It speaks to something permanent in human nature. The tendency to panic. The urge to escape discomfort. The habit of mistaking emotion for truth. The Stoics never promised happiness in the modern sense. They promised steadiness. They promised clarity. They promised resilience in a world that does not bend to your feelings. Across centuries, their message has remained unchanged. If you want peace, discipline your thoughts. If you want strength, train your mind. If you want freedom, stop giving authority to what you feel in the moment. This is not outdated wisdom. It is timeless because human nature has not changed. We still fear. We still desire. We still overreact. And we still suffer when emotion leads unchecked. Stoicism endures because it tells the truth most people avoid. You will not always control what happens to you. But you will always be responsible for how you meet it. This is the fifth truth. Wisdom survives centuries because the battlefield never moved. It has always been the mind. Talent is never the problem. It rarely is. Some of the most gifted people never fulfill what they are capable of. They have intelligence. They have creativity. They have opportunity. And yet, their lives stall, fracture, or quietly collapse. Not because they lacked potential, but because they lacked inner discipline. An undisciplined mind turns talent into a liability. Because talent amplifies emotion. When confidence is high, talent shines. But when doubt enters, that same talent becomes fragile. A gifted mind feels more deeply. It imagines further. It reacts faster. And without discipline, it also collapses faster. This is why many talented people struggle with instability. They burn hot, then burn out. They start strong, then disappear. They feel inspired one day, defeated the next. They mistake emotion for insight. They assume intensity equals truth. And when feeling fades, direction disappears with it. Talent without discipline obeys mood. It works when motivation is present. It quits when discomfort arrives. It performs when praised. It retreats when criticized. This is not weakness. It is lack of structure. The Stoics understood that raw ability means nothing without governance. A sharp blade without a steady hand cuts its own wielder. In the same way, talent without mental order destroys itself. How many lives have been undone this way? Careers ended by a single emotional reaction. Relationships destroyed by words spoken in heat. Years of progress erased by one season of despair. Not because the challenge was too great, but because the inner foundation was too soft. An untrained mind seeks relief. A trained mind seeks endurance. The talented but undisciplined person avoids discomfort at all costs. They abandon paths that demand patience. They retreat when growth becomes painful. They chase inspiration instead of building consistency. But discipline does not need inspiration. It needs commitment. Those who endure are rarely the most gifted. They are the most governed. They know how to sit with discomfort without panicking. They know how to work without applause. They know how to hold course when emotion fluctuates. This is why disciplined minds outlast talented ones. Because discipline turns ability into stability. And stability turns effort into legacy. This is the sixth truth. Talent may open doors. But only inner discipline determines who stays inside. Every choice ruled by emotion has a price. Not always visible at first. Not always immediate. But always real. Emotional living drains life quietly. It does not collapse you in one moment. It erodes you over time. You pay with peace. You pay with clarity. You pay with relationships strained by reactions you cannot take back. You pay with opportunities lost because fear spoke louder than reason. This is the hidden cost most people never calculate. They call it passion. They call it sensitivity. They call it being human. But the Stoics called it something else. They called it slavery. Because a man who cannot govern his inner world is not free. No matter how many choices appear before him. No matter how much power or talent he holds. When emotion rules, you are controlled by what is outside of you. By other people's words. By their approval or rejection. By circumstances you cannot command. Praise lifts you. Criticism crushes you. Silence unsettles you. Delay weakens your resolve. This is not freedom. It is dependence. Stoic freedom is something entirely different. It is not the ability to do whatever you feel. It is the ability to remain steady regardless of what you feel. A free person can feel anger without becoming violent. He can feel fear without fleeing. He can feel pain without surrendering direction. This is why the Stoics placed self-mastery above all else. Because if you cannot master yourself, the world will gladly do it for you. An untrained mind becomes open ground. Anyone can enter. Anyone can provoke. Anyone can disturb your peace. But a disciplined mind becomes sovereign territory. Events may knock. Emotions may rise. But nothing crosses the threshold without permission. This is the kind of freedom no one can take from you. Not loss. Not insult. Not failure. Not chaos. It does not depend on circumstances improving. It depends on governance. The Stoics did not promise comfort. They promised independence. Independence from impulse. Independence from fear. Independence from the need to be constantly validated. And that independence comes with responsibility. The responsibility to choose reason over reaction. To endure discomfort without escape. To remain present when emotions demand flight. This is the seventh truth. Freedom is not found in doing what you want. It is found in no longer being ruled by what you feel. Understanding is not enough. Insight without practice changes nothing. A mind is not trained by agreement. It is trained by repetition. The Stoics were not philosophers of theory. They were practitioners of discipline. Their wisdom survived because it was lived, not admired. If you want a steady mind, you must train it the same way you train the body. Daily. Intentionally. Especially when you do not feel like it. The first principle is input. Your mind cannot think clearly if it is fed chaos. What you consume becomes what you consider normal. Noise in, noise out. Clarity in, clarity out. Choose what enters your mind with the same care you choose what enters your body. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every opinion deserves space. Discipline begins at the gate. The second principle is interruption. Between stimulus and response, create a pause. Emotion demands immediacy. Reason requires space. Train yourself to stop before reacting. Breathe. Observe the thought. Ask one question, is this true, or is this emotional urgency? That pause is not weakness. It is power. The third principle is examination. Do not let thoughts run unchecked. Interrogate them. Where did this thought come from? Fear. Habit. Past wounds. Or fact. A trained mind does not argue with reality. But it refuses to obey distortion. The fourth principle is replacement. You do not defeat a false thought by fighting it endlessly. You replace it with something stronger. Truth displaces fear. Perspective dissolves exaggeration. Reason weakens impulse. The Stoics wrote, repeated, and rehearsed their principles daily. Not because they forgot, but because the mind drifts without structure. The fifth principle is preparation. Do not wait for the storm to decide how you will act. Decide in advance. Imagine difficulty before it arrives. Rehearse restraint. Practice endurance while calm. This is how discipline becomes automatic under pressure. The sixth principle is consistency. Not intensity. Not motivation. Consistency. A few minutes every day shapes the mind more than rare moments of inspiration. The mind does not change through force. It changes through repetition. There will be days when emotion is louder. Days when clarity feels distant. That is not failure. That is training. Each time you choose reason over reaction, you strengthen the muscle. Each time you pause instead of explode, you gain ground. Each time you endure discomfort without escape, you reclaim freedom. This is the eighth truth. A disciplined mind is not built in moments of crisis. It is built quietly, daily, when no one is watching. And that is why it lasts. Most of life is not lost in dramatic moments. It is lost in small reactions repeated daily. A tone in a message. A look that feels dismissive. A delay that triggers impatience. A comment that hits an old wound. Nothing catastrophic happened. And yet, inside, everything shifts. Your heart tightens. Your thoughts race. Your impulse moves toward defense, withdrawal, or attack. This is where untrained minds give control away. Not because they are weak, but because they are automatic. In daily life, emotional reactions often appear as overthinking. You replay conversations. You imagine intentions. You create meaning where none was confirmed. A trained mind interrupts the loop. It refuses to assume. It waits for facts instead of feeding fear. At work, reactions are costly. One defensive response can damage trust. One impulsive message can close doors. One moment of ego can undo months of progress. Stoic discipline in work looks like restraint. You pause before replying. You choose clarity over speed. You respond to the issue, not the emotion behind it. This is not passivity. It is professionalism grounded in self-command. In relationships, reactions are even more dangerous. Because emotion feels justified when it is personal. Anger seeks to punish. Silence seeks to control. Withdrawal seeks protection. But these reactions rarely protect anything. They build distance. They harden resentment. They teach others how to disturb your peace. A Stoic response does not deny feeling. It delays expression until wisdom arrives. You feel the surge. You acknowledge it. But you do not let it decide your behavior. Instead of reacting, you ask, what outcome do I want? What response serves my values, not my mood? This single question changes everything. When insulted, the untrained mind strikes back. The trained mind assesses. Is this worth my peace? When ignored, the untrained mind panics. The trained mind remains steady. It does not beg for validation. When criticized, the untrained mind collapses or attacks. The trained mind separates signal from noise. Is there something to learn? Or is this merely opinion? This is what Stoic freedom looks like in practice. Not dominance over others. Dominance over reaction. You do not need to win every exchange. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to prove yourself in every moment. The moment you stop reacting automatically, power returns to you. This is the ninth truth. Life, work, and relationships are shaped less by what happens to you, and more by how you respond when emotion tries to take the wheel. And the one who governs reaction, governs life. You cannot control the storm. You were never meant to. You cannot silence emotion forever. Nor should you try. But you can decide who holds the wheel. Every day, emotion will demand authority. It will speak loudly. It will insist that urgency is truth. And every day, you will choose. You will either react, or you will respond. You will either give power away, or you will claim it back. A disciplined mind does not wait for calm. It creates it. It does not depend on circumstances improving. It remains steady regardless. This is not coldness. This is strength. Not the strength to dominate others, but the strength to govern yourself. And that is the highest form of freedom. So remember this. Emotions are signals, not commanders. The mind must lead, or life will drift. Choose discipline. Choose clarity. And walk forward unshaken.